LaDonna Battle-Leverett is the daughter of Calvin and Peola Battle, who were killed in the Social Security office on the first floor of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. LaDonna and her three sisters honor their parents by participating in the Remembrance Ceremony and volunteering at the Memorial Marathon. LaDonna, thank you so much for joining us today. John Cole, godfather of Elijah and Aaron Coverdale, who were killed on April 19th, 1995, while in the America Kids Daycare on the second floor of the Murrah Federal Building. John is a former trustee and was involved in the creation of the memorial and museum. And Joyce Henderson, Hall of Fame educator and trustee at the Oklahoma City National Memorial Museum. In 1995, Joyce was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you were principal at the newly opened class in SAS, and that is where she was on April 19th. And she led her school family in healing, and so I'm really interested to hear that experience as well. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Okay, and so as we kind of launch into this story, I want to start by hearing your recollection, like your entry point into this story, and I'll kind of go down the line and ask you to share, that day and where, how you enter into this story. And so, John, can we start with you? You had a special connection with the Murrah Building, and so can you kind of share what your connection was?
Right. I worked for the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission. So at that day, I was in Norman at a convention that was put on by the Department of Labor. And I was up front in front of the audience as we took 10 minutes or so for a break. As I was walking out, I was informed that there was an explosion in the downtown area. And then later on, as information came in, it was at first it was said that it was in a federal building. I knew the federal building was close to the kids' daycare. They were on the second floor, and I recall that the perpetrator of this caged this building out. They knew that there were kids on the second floor, and I saw one of them when I brought the boys over to the daycare, and I noticed this guy standing near the elevator and looked out of place. And I noticed the boys started squeezing my leg. So they felt something. And so I assured them, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to allow anything to happen to you. And that was a promise that I was unable to keep. And so my involvement with the memorial was one of not only I wanted to be involved and commemorate Aaron and Elijah in a special way, but I also wanted to do that for the rest of the kids in the daycare. I got to know a number of them. In that daycare, you had to be buzzed in order to get into around the kids. So each time one of the adults would go to either to pick up one of their children, they all the kids would come to the front door because it could have, they didn't know if it could have been their mom, their dad, and so that way I got to know a number of them. So I felt my involvement with the memorial had to be one of, I wanted to do something special for not only Aaron and Elijah, but also for the kids that was in the daycare that I got to know, and as I got to know a number of the adults and the other family members, so that concern even widened. And so I felt to be involved in many effort things that were going on as possible, as it relate to the mission statement, the selection of the memorial outside footprint, the selection committee for that. So I wanted to be involved in all of it. I felt that we owed it to the people that lost their lives in that building. And to this day, that commitment is still with me. Any opportunity that I have to enlighten, to spread hope as it relates to carrying on the mission statement, then I want to do that as long as I'm here. There are a number of individual family members, survivors that have moved away, but for those of us that are here, they are dependent on us to do our part to represent them in whatever is going on as it relates to the memorial itself. And so anytime Stephen called me, and if there's something that I can do and put it into the schedule, I'm willing to do that. And it's as a result of everybody working together, we can be proud of what we've accomplished. I'm very impressed with the job that the staff is doing here and the different programs and just always, I plan to always be available when I can.
Well, I appreciate you answering the call.
Thank you. I'm Joyce Henderson, and of course, at that time, you can remember that day just like it was yesterday. I can assure you, I was at the administration building changing my W-2 form, W-4, I believe, because they were taking too much money out of my check. And I said, well, let me just go down here and make this change. While in the business office, the lights go off. Boom. So I was teasing them. I said, you guys haven't paid your electricity bill? When I went out in the hall, different ones were sticking their heads out of their offices. We knew something had happened. We didn't know what happened. But I knew one thing, I needed to get out of there and get back to the school building. Well, if you know where the administration building is located, really 900 North Klein or 9th and Western. And my school was 1901 North Ellison, which is right off of Classen. When I got back to the building, and of course I had my radio on, and they were speculating what could have happened. When I got to my building, I had students in the halls crying and different reactions, and my gosh, everybody, being the principal, thought I knew what happened, which I did not know. But when I found out what happened and knew that it affected so many of my students because their parents worked down there. They had parents to work. And back then we didn't have social media like we have it today. And they're concerned. Can I call my mama? Can I call daddy? Can I, there were just many, many things. As a principal, I was not going to say, no, you cannot. Get back in the classroom, maybe. That was not the time for any of that. It was a time where all of my teachers, we all recognized, after we heard it was an explosion and where Classen is located, you could see the smoke in the air. And when students started saying, my mother works here or my dad works there, we knew we really had to deal with emotions and calm them down. So rather than to have them in the classroom, we put them in the cafeteria. And that way, it's nothing better than being with your classmates and your friends, etc. But I tell people that moment you cannot etch out of your mind, because you were hugging. They were like babies. They were afraid. They were scared. And needless to say, I didn't know I knew as many people at that time who were in the bombing itself until it was all over. You deal with healing with young people. You can't say, oh, don't cry, don't this. That's not what you do with young people when they are hurting. They were hurting. My staff hurting. I was hurting. And when you have everybody hurting, you lean on each other for some type of comfort. And in spite of all of that, we made it through. But as I reflect on us hoping, the word hope, today, as I see my students, and they're much older now because this happened about 29 years ago for me, you had one particular student who said, Miss Henderson, I remember how you pulled us all together when that bombing took place. I didn't ask for it, but it was, sometimes little things can mean so much. But that was a moment he remembered how I reacted. And of course, when you are a leader, you have to still have some form of calmness about yourself so that they can feel calm. Mm-hmm. But after that, we were involved with any and everything with this memorial that could continue to comfort students. It's not like you read it in a book. You experienced some things. And I cannot tell you, if we don't watch it, we may take this out of the books. You cannot afford to take history out of our textbooks, because those are moments that you learn so that you don't. And we tell people, understand your history so you can understand what's happening, so we can do better going forward. So I'll just wrap that up with that.
Mm-hmm. Now, LaDonna, your parents were in the Social Security office. Do you want to share a little bit about why and sort of that your experience there?
Yeah, my dad, I'm LaDonna Battle-Leverett, and like Ms. Henderson says, it's just like the pain never goes away. It never goes away. We have just learned how to find a place for it and shield it with everything that is just precious to us, because the world don't understand our journey. So we take it and we place it and we move on. And so my dad, he had a stroke, and so he couldn't work. And so he was down here to get his benefits set up. So my mom, she was going to figure out who could take him because she was on jury duty. And so, but she got released off of jury duty early because she did not believe in capital punishment. And so they released her from jury duty. And so it was going to be one of the girls that were going to come down with my dad to get him all set up. And then my mom said, no, I can go ahead and go with him instead. And by me being the baby, you know, I'm always tagging along with mom and dad no matter where they go. So I made it all planned that I'm going to go down there with mom to help dad. And so the day of the bombing, my son was supposed to come down for a field trip. And he said, Grandma, he said, you know, he said, do you have a little extra change? He said, because my mama don't have no money. And my mom said, well, you know, she never has any money, but I got some change for you. So I said, well, Mom, I said, well, why don't you, I'm gonna call in sick, and I'm gonna come down I'm gonna go with you and Dad. And she said, she looked at me and she says, no, she said, you know, you always want to tag along with me and Dad. She said, today I'm going to go down there with him, and I'm going to be with him on that day. And so just looking back on that, it would have been me, my mom, and my dad. And my mom saw something that she was a very wise woman, and she saw something that we did not see. And so I worked at Target, and so at the time of the bombing, when it went off, I worked at the one on May Avenue, and I heard this huge blast, and the building just shook, and everybody was kind of running around, and we thought it was a transformer, you know. And so I clocked in and went onto my station and everything, and then slowly people start coming up, and they said, no, it was a bombing. It was, you know, it was something downtown. It was a bomb. And so I'm thinking like, okay, downtown, okay, Mom's, you know, going to the Social Security building. Well, maybe she went to her other events first. And I called my sisters, so we got on the phone, we started calling each other, and my sister says, no, I think Mom is, you know, they were going to the Social Security building, and they were going to be there, the first one in line, you know, so she could get in there, get Dad situated, and then she, you know. And so my sister called, Gwen called, everybody was calling around, and so finally they told us it was the Alfred P. Murrah Building that housed, and they start naming out all these different departments, and they finally got to the Social Security building. And when they said the Social Security building, my heart just, time just stood still, because we knew they were there. So my sister Doris, she says, I'm going to try to get down there as far as I can get. She got all the way down to the building, and they called the second bomb. They said we think there's another bomb in the building, and so they all had to run. So she ran back, and she called, and she says, I didn't see Mom, I didn't see Dad. We start calling their phones, you know, and it was the most weirdest thing. My mom's phone, it would ring, and then it would just go, it would just have a long, silent, buzzing noise, you know, and we would call it, and it would just have that long buzzing noise. And we called until they started telling people to go to like St. Anthony's. I think it was St. Anthony's, that they were housing some of the John Does and Jane Does. Mm-hmm. And we waited. But we knew, we kept hope. We kept hope because we thought, okay, if anybody's going to get out of that building, it's going to be my mom and dad. You know, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to get out of there. But when 3:30 came, about 4:30, when it was time to pick the kids up, they didn't show up. And a friend of ours went to get the kids, and we all went to Mom's house, and we just sat until they called us. But we knew that they were there, and we never gave up hope. We thought maybe somehow they're down somewhere, you know, where they're still going to pull them out. We knew that they were going to be very badly, you know, injured, but we were given hope that they were going to be found. And to piggyback on Ms. Henderson's about, we never gave up hope. We never gave up hope from day one until, you know, but history is so important. We think history is something that you just put in a book and you read about and you move on. History gives you a footprint in where you've been and where you're going. And if you don't know where you've been, you're just grasping on steps that you're taking to get where you're going. And in the midst of those steps that you're taking, you're making mistakes along the way because you don't know what has happened in the past. And so I look at where we were April 19th and the hope that this story that people has been telling about the Oklahoma City bombing, it would give people around the world the hope to realize this never should happen again. You know, please don't let it happen again. But with the notion of different things being taken out of textbooks, cherry picking what they want to put in the textbook. History is ugly, it's nasty, it doesn't look good, it doesn't feel good, but guess what? It's history. It's what has happened, where we can take a blueprint and say, we can shape the world in a positive direction instead of shaping it in a direction that we have no roadmap. We have a blueprint. So it is crucial that we teach our kids and we tell our kids, when you look at those chairs out there, that's what hatred did. But when you look at us, it shows the toughness that our parents left us. We're like that tree. You can knock us down, you can tear us up, but you can't keep us there. And we look the enemy in the eye and say, what you did that day, you might have thought you were bringing us down, but we're here fighting every step of the way to make sure that what happened on April 19th, no other family needs to go through that again.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Oh, I need to, we were recording this, and so we're going to put that on a commercial so people still come to the memorial, right? So to keep them coming, because that was beautiful. You know, and it goes, very much goes against something I heard as a kid. Like when I was upset about something, I'd have adults say, like, forget it and move on, right? Forget it and move forward. But like moving forward requires you to remember, doesn't it? It requires, you know, keep a memory alive. And I think this place, more than maybe any place I've ever been, like it's so clear. So I'm wondering, so this is, I mean, just a really, really tragic moment in the city's life, in the communities, and obviously in right here on this stage. And so I'm wondering, where did you personally find strength when, you know, the moment when which, like you said, you kept hope, but then when you find out, right, when you find out that they're not coming home, where did the strength come from?
Let me just say, in our building, we never took for granted the mental health of the students. You didn't need your mother or your father. You knew what happened to so many people. So when you start talking about your strength, every opportunity we had to do anything to show that we cared, we took advantage of that. And when I say we, I'm talking about the school and the Oklahoma City Public Schools, all of the schools. At one time, we talked about the penny
campaign.
drive.
Yeah.
And we made sure all of the students participated in that. Any opportunity we had to be a part of to show that we cared. And we took advantage of that. I'm thinking about the one time I went to 5 different funerals because I knew the people. And I was in a daze. I attended this one funeral and I ran the stop sign, the red light. And the policeman pulled me over. Well, oh my gosh, I'm thinking. But my mind was on what I experienced. And so the policeman said, do you realize you ran that stoplight? And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I've just attended a funeral of ABC. And he said, well, you need to concentrate on you so that we don't have to go to your funeral. And I thought that was so nice of him. If I could find him today, I would thank him because he made me stop. He woke me up, really, because sometimes we do get in a daze. But it made me, being a former civil rights sit-inner, reflect on so many things Clara Luper taught us when we were in school. And the one thing that you'll know about Clara Luper, she had enough love for everybody, regardless of race, creed, or color. And that was the one thing we had to hang on to. In spite of what happened, we had to still have some love to exist in us. And that was a lesson. We learned so many lessons. We don't like the way we learn the lessons, but we learned many lessons as a result of this. And one that I'm very proud of, where you had hate here, across the street at the post office, they named that post office Clara Luper Post Office. Now, they don't have a sign up there, but we had the big ceremony, the dedication and everything. So you have hate here, but you had love across the street. And what we're saying, not because of, but in spite of, we're going to continue to love and to improve life, improve the hearts of man, because if you don't change the hearts, this will repeat. And it is important that we continue to get that message out.
Yeah, I also think that dialoguing is key. This is not something that I came up with, but I bought into it, and that is we can discuss anything, almost any subject, if we do it in truth, if we do it in respect, and if we do it in love. And I put those things to work every day. You know, in one example, in talking to my neighbor, you know, he's an oil man, and he knew that I bought an electric car, so he came over to give me a hard time, and just out of his mouth, he was just throwing all these subjects, you know, the border, the president walks too slow, you know, his age, he's too old, and I just said, okay, you've thrown out a lot of things here. Let me respond to some of this, and so I noticed after I said that the temperature in his action kind of calmed down, and we went on to talk about what had happened that day, what had happened that week, as it relates to one of his favorite subjects. The board is open. I said, well, the House had an opportunity to pass a bill to address that. I don't like the idea of who does like the idea of people just coming in and they're not, paying attention to the laws that we have. We all have to abide by those laws, and but it's when we have an opportunity to address and correct things, then we should take an opportunity to do that. And so that showed me and others and all of you that it wasn't about solving the problem. Mm-hmm. It was about grandstanding. It was about using people as a political pawn. These are human beings, and so they should be treated that way. And it again just goes back to we can have any discussion, but we have to do it in a way that we're going to respect each other. We're not going to solve anything by shouting at each other. And if we're going to accomplish anything, that's the way we're going to have to do it. I come from a big family where I became a good listener. I was raised with 7 sisters, so they felt that I was someone to practice on. I had one sister to tell me, "Well, I didn't even know you could talk. You didn't give me a chance." But being a middle child, there's something to be said for that. I'm supposed to be well balanced, and I see some of that characteristic in me. And it took all of what my parents instilled in me in order to do some of the things that we've accomplished, that I've accomplished personally in my life, and in working with some of the movers and the shakers of the city. I thought these guys would, when I knew that I had to meet with them, I thought, well, they're going to squeeze me. They're going to apply all this pressure on me to get what they want, and we're not gonna have a chance. But
so you're talking about the task force
yes,
to
yes.
build a memorial. Okay.
The task force. I thought they would just come across with the type of pressure that it would cause people to be swayed and do exactly what the movers and shakers want. And but as it turned out, these were some of the nicest people. I still have contact with them today. They just have a lot of money. And, it's amazing how once you sit down and talk to people about whatever the situation is, and tell them your story and you listen to their story, how you can accomplish so much. But the thing that really, when I met with Stephen, over lunch, I thought he was going to say, "Well, John, we gonna meet here, and we don't want to say anything about religion at all. We don't, we want to keep that on the down low." And but that is what got me through the tough times. Was the religious background my mom and dad instilled in me, and all my life, I started teaching Sunday school when I was in high school, and taught all the way up, adulthood. But that is what my religious background, conviction, this is what sustained me through the tough time, the valley. That was, even though these two boys was not my blood kin, I had grown so close to them. They spent so much time in our home. I had so much big plans for them, I just saw the things that we were gonna do as it relates to, sitting around talking with their girlfriends, hanging out, going with them, buying a car, going to school. I had all this in my mind, and it was all taken away. And so I felt that was the darkest. I didn't know that much pain existed in the world. And I felt that I didn't deserve to have a good time, to laugh, to enjoy. But I remember how a peace came upon me, and I was able to accomplish and do some of the things that I wanted to do. I can recall being in a planning meeting as it relates to the memorial, and I spoke. I couldn't remember. I couldn't tell you what it had to do with the memorial. I couldn't recall when I left the room what I even said, but I kind of thought about it a while, and I thought, who was that? Where were those words coming from? Who was speaking? Was that really me? Yeah, it was divine, and that's where my hope come from, and I am so glad and so thankful for the people that was in my life and instilled all the things in me, and gave me hope and encouraged me, and all of that. I was raised in Mississippi, a red state. But I had an atypical background coming from the state of Mississippi. I grew up with white friends. We rode bicycle. We rode horses. We played baseball. And this was all a result of my parents. And so I was shielded in a way. And in that way that I saw my parents interact with different people in the community, I paid attention to that. With that, I was able to do some of the things and feel comfortable with the movers and the shakers in Oklahoma City. And I look back on that, and I think that upbringing gave me what I needed to be ready to do the things that was ahead. And I'm just so thankful for my parents, all their friends. I had people concerned about me. These are my friends' parents and grandparents saw something in me, and they were concerned about my education. They didn't want me to smoke cigarette. They were concerned about my health. They were concerned about my education. And these were my mom and dad, white friends. That really meant a lot to me, and I reflect on that all the time. And I'm appreciative of what I was, the upbringing that I had, and how that shaped me as to who I am today. And as a result of that, we were able to accomplish what many have come to see here at this place.
That's excellent. That's excellent. LaDonna.
Well, I can go on and on and on. Being a black lady in Oklahoma, and I remember my mom and dad. We lived off of 4th Street, and back then, you know, with it being Black History, you know, Clara Looper, you know, when I got to be a certain age, you know, I was going to be right there in the thick of things. And I remember I was a little girl, and I never to this day, I have a place. I don't even like that word, because I don't have a place. My place is wherever I decide to put my chair. And so I didn't know what color. I knew what color was, but it didn't resonate that it was just a color. So when I was a little girl, I had to stay with this lady, and we had to ride the bus. And so we got on the bus, and she said, we got to go to the back. And I'm looking at all these empty seats. And I said, no, we can sit here. She said, no, we got to go to the back. And I was like, no, I want to sit here. And so she grabbed me and she took me to the back. Oh, I was just so hot. So I got home, and my mom said, well, what's wrong? And I said, I want to go back over to that lady's house. I said, because she made me sit in the back. And I said, I wanted to sit in the front. And that's when I realized what segregation was. Still not really knowing the depth of it, but my mom she didn't really go into it. And so we went on, we passed forward. I'm in high school, you know, and that's when busing started. So we got bused way over to Northwest Classen, because there was a time when you didn't pass Broadway. You know, when you pass Broadway, you better be back on that other end by sundown. And, you know, I mean, just little bitty things, you know. But I didn't let that stop me, because I knew that there are people out there that would see me for me, LaDonna. And I search for those type of people. I don't look for those type, you know, I don't look for people that don't allow me to sit at their table. If they don't want me at their table, I go find me some people that like diversity. I love to have everybody different, you know, it doesn't matter. And that's what makes the world so much more beautiful. And that's what I loved about my mom and dad. They came up on the Jim Crow, but they didn't teach us to stay in Jim Crow. They taught us to look for a higher. And where I feel like my sisters and I got our strength from, yes, it was from our church. And they loved us, and they tried to help us. But they got so far where they couldn't heal that hurt. Mm-hmm. So I sought out to go to find another church. And Lord and behold, how did I end up down at First United Methodist Church? Don't ask me. It's a whole hour conversation. We'd have to have dinner, lunch, and then dinner again. But I ended up down at First United Methodist Church. And the people there, they didn't know me, but they loved me and they gave me a chance to heal. And that's where I began to get my healing and moving towards, where I am today. Because on April 19th, I felt like, everybody was at the house. The cars was packed. There was no standing room. The lawn was full with people and everything. And then one minute we look up and it goes black. And it's just us, our 4 sisters. We're in this house. Mom and Dad's gone. No holds bar. And we're thinking like, who's gonna referee now? And one thing we learned more than anything, we may be a family, but we're all individual. And we all hurt and we all heal. And we had to find a place to give each other grace and say, it's okay. It's okay if you don't go to the memorial. It's okay if you don't want to go with the rest of us. We had to learn that we all were different, and that's the one ingredient that Peola did not give us. She had 4 girls, but she touched us all individually. And that's a trait that it takes a strong person to know. And when we realized that we were individually and we were going to heal separately, then we were okay. Now, what does it look like for the rest of my sisters? I'm doing LaDonna, Janet's doing Janet, Gwen's doing Gwen, Doris is doing Doris. My oldest sister has never come back down to the memorial. But that's okay. That's okay with her. And giving people room to know it is okay to move on and be happy. It is okay for some to sit back and say, I'm not never going back, I'm not going to do this. It's okay. And so, like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we gotta stand up and go high. And these settings like this is what we need. We need to stop being fake. We need to stop being trying to be politically correct, and we need to sit at the table and have conversations. And guess what? All of us is not going to agree. We're not going to agree, but that's okay. We can still walk away and say, you know what? I still like you. You're still my friend. We just don't agree. And I think until the world realize that we are more alike than we are different. Some of us got a little bit more money. Some of us got a little bit more land. Some of us got a little bit, some of us don't even have anything. But we are more alike. We love our families, and so.
That's beautiful. So I think I asked 2 questions, and we have covered so much ground. I wanted to, and we're like over time, but if you have the ability, would you be up to fielding a couple questions? I want to give the audience a chance. Is that okay? Okay. Any questions or comments or really anything at all from the audience?
Good evening. Thank you guys for being here. I know Ms. Henderson and I know Mr. Cole. It's nice to meet you too, Ms. Battle, and thank you for doing this, Stephen. We talked, I'm an educator, and I believe that we should be able to come to an agreement on what is undeniable. Why do you think there seems to be so much resistance on certain things, aspects of our history that occurred even in our own state? And when we even talking about the largest massacre, we always say that this happened here, but we don't talk about Tulsa. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily, one, I guess, why do you think that is? And secondly, do you think that the memorial should play an active role in making that other part known and utilizing its platform to make sure that we do honor the legacy and just the memory and just the undeniable fact of what happened, and giving it, and they're trying to use this platform to elevate it so that way we all can be on the same footing and moving forward?
If I can speak on that one question, if we would have spoke more and stopped being silent about it, my question would probably be, the bombing may not have happened, but we'll never know that, because everybody was too afraid to step on somebody else's toes, and that's what I'm saying. We have to not be afraid to say that was my family member, and I don't know why they felt that way. We have to take that Band-Aid off and be truthful. What happened in Tulsa happened in Tulsa, and it was a massacre, and there's a lot of people that did not and don't know about it, but they're beginning to know about it because of the publicity, and the people are talking about it. So it just comes back, we have to sit down and start having conversations, hard conversations. And they're not going to be good, but it's going to awaken something in us to say, wow, we should, yeah.
I'm going to sum it up like this. When you know better, you do better. And that's important, because if you don't know, you don't know. Many of us don't know we don't know. That's the unfortunate part. But once you have these conversations, you find out what you don't know. And then when you know, the light comes on. Because if we can change one person, I think many of us think about the big crowd, but conversations with 2 or 3, that's a conversation. And when you have these small conversations, you can change attitudes, you can change behavior, just because I understand you better, you understand me better. It's a funny thing about knowing people as a race, so to speak. Once you know me as a person, you will eliminate all of the stereotypes you thought you knew about me as a race. Because you can say, well, now I know Joyce Henderson. You're not thinking, I know Joyce Henderson, she's black. That's not what you know Joyce Henderson as a person. And that, to me, that's the conversation I like. And you don't do that in large groups. Conversations, you really get at the heart of people. So when you know better, you do better. And when you have these conversations, you can't help but know me as an individual, and not as a group or as a race.
I think there's a definite connection between what happened here, what happened in Tulsa, and what happened in New York. Some of you know that the 9/11 family come here and be with us on the 19th, and we go up there in September to be with them on the 11th. if so there is a connection, and that connection is these events were perpetrated by hatred. Tulsa was perpetrated by hatred and jealousy. I think that just by knowing that, I think going forward, any opportunity we can establish in order to create an environment to include those locations, I think the better off we will be. I have toured the exhibit in Tulsa, and it is really nice. If you haven't seen it, it is. They did an excellent job. It's as I see some of the same technology that are used here is in Tulsa, and I think that is going to be an attraction for people to see around the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to also say, another question is that when you sit down and have those conversations, and when you become aware of what's going on, that next question is like, when you get up, it's like now you're accountable. And a lot of people don't want to be accountable. They want to stay in their nice little comfy zone and just keep the sheets around their, blinds down, pretend like nothing is going on when the whole world is going crazy. And we have to be, we're going to be accountable one way or another. It's either going to be it's going to be on the forefront today, but it may be on your front porch tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to be too late to be accountable. Mm-hmm. So it's like you either going to be in the race or you're not going to be in the race. And so a lot of people just don't want to be accountable. They don't want to sit and do the hard work. Mm-hmm. I like doing hard stuff. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, some of us need to learn how to do the hard stuff. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't take this opportunity off that question to highlight one of the programs we have here called Road to Remembrance. And we too believe that this museum, as well as the museum in Tulsa, Greenwood Rising, should be safe places to talk about all the history. And so the Road to Remembrance program, we take students from Oklahoma City Public Schools, high schools, and from Tulsa Public Schools. And in one day, they come and visit both museums, crossing each other twice on the turnpike. And then at the end of the day, we connect via Zoom and have a conversation and ask those questions, those very questions, like what are the differences, what are the similarities, like pointing out the hatred piece there. It's amazing how quickly students can see the similarities there, right? But they also see the differences, and when we talk about, historic differences and all those things, it's just an opportunity to have those conversations. Because I think you hit the nail on the head there when we talk about Oklahoma history. Like, what is all of our responsibility, and what is the responsibility of a place like this? So, you probably didn't know about the Road to Remembrance, but it's doing work, and so I'm really proud of the work that both the memorial here does and Greenwood Rising with that program.
Did that answer your question? Yep. Did we answer?
Okay, I want to be respectful of your time. I know that, like I said, we covered a lot of ground, but it also took some time. If you want to grab some food on our way out, please do that, because there's definitely some there. And thank you so much for to our guests and the voices and the knowledge and experience you brought here. It was enlightening.